Greetings, citizens from the rolling hills of the bluegrass. You know, it was just a couple of nights ago that I woke up at 3 in the morning with this idea. And as I've stated before, I work better on inspiration because if I don't sit down and really try to work out what I'm trying to say, it just becomes a rant. It just becomes this stream of consciousness that some people enjoy and some just totally ignore. And that's why the audio letters are nice, because I give myself 300 words to try to say something, to try to get an idea out of my head and somewhere else, so it's not just rattling around in there, annoying the absolute crazy out of me. And this one, came to me, woke me up, came to me in 3 in the morning, is that, so, if all of us are on the right, libertarians, conservatives, anyone who is not what we would call a leftist, right, which is the resurgence of Marxism and socialism and communism and all the other collectivist ideals, which can even include some conservative ideas. If all of us are on the right, then the right has, funny enough, a collective problem with storytelling. We are incapable of creating a narrative. And it's very interesting because for the longest time, those on the right, we were the religious nutcases, the superstitious wingbats, who believed in this ephemera world where, freedoms, well, who gives you the freedoms? Oh, well, God gives you the freedoms. Oh, okay, well, but your God isn't real, so therefore you don't have any freedoms. And it's very strange because you have these things. It's like the right is full of, religious nuts, but we're also full of racist bigots, Nazis and neo-Nazis and all of these things. That's the right. But yet over here on the left are your cool, your calm, collected, very rational people who believe in data, and they want citation, and they want collective peer review, so that it can be tested, and they're very, very, by the numbers, you would almost say. But then on top of that, you have this almost uncontrollable empathy. This almost pushed to ecstasy level of empathy where we must be empathic at all stages, at all times and everything, while also somehow holding on to these cold, harsh realities of data. And it makes things very confusing, because how can those two things exist together in the same brain? This over-emotional romanticization and this cold, hard logic. How do those two things operate inside of the same brain? Well, I would say that primarily it's because they can write a compelling narrative. And you hear this all the time. What's the narrative? Well, that's your narrative. Well, the narrative is, what is it? It's a story. And storytellers have been with humanity for forever. It is how we recorded our history. It's how we learned not to eat the red berries, because the red berries made Uncle Clyde go away. Now we eat only the blueberries. The storytellers remind us of the things we did in the past and of the things we could do in the future if we have the courage. And the problem is that the right has now started to apply all of these cold, rational numbers and figures and data and all of this stuff, and it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And this is where the facts don't care about your feelings, which is quite honestly where Ben Shapiro kind of maybe fired that gun too soon or too often. Is because now it's a meme, and a meme is meant to both inform and ridicule. It's to point out a very obvious flaw. So memes are small, very quick storytelling devices. They're little bitty vehicles that propel an idea forward. And that's the reason why serious memes don't really work, because, again, it's the Oscar Wilde or the idea of a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. It's something a little sweet, a little funny. It makes you chuckle just a bit and then go, And the right can't do that. Because now we're supposed to be these moral arbiters. And if the whole point is to poke holes in your opponent's argument, and that opponent is saying, oh, well, I'm the most moral person here, well, then you're setting yourself up to be dismantled. And that's the whole point. Dismantling. Dismantle. Dismantle. And you use a story as a wrecking ball to take the legs out from underneath you. And the right, we just don't tell stories. And you look at leftist movements throughout history, and one of those tropes, and I think I've said this in a couple of videos before, is the idea of the starving poet. But if you look at the 1619 Project, a good majority of those people are not academics. They're not professors. You know, if you go to the right and you go to a conference, it's an esteemed professor so-and-so of economics, esteemed historian, esteemed this, esteemed that, blah, 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 blah. It's the same set of people, same type of credentialing. And you rarely ever hear of a fiction writer from the right having any prominence or purpose. Because the right has worked themselves out of the idea of being the superstitious religious people. It might still be in there. And now they're trying to go for this hardcore, cold facts type position, and they're still losing. So they lost whenever they were superstitious, and now they're losing when they're rational. Well, how are you even on the board? How do you even have pieces in the game if every single time you're countered and you lose? Where are the eloquent writers that are writing fiction? Where are the eloquent poets that are on the right? We don't have any. And if we do have them, they are out doing poetry. They're out making art, writing music. They're not worrying about the political things that are going on around them. And there are one or two, maybe, that might from time to time pop up and say something, but then they just go away. The poets and the artists, the playwrights, they are at the forefront in the leftist movements. That's the reason why you hear someone like Eric Dyson. Eric Dyson? Yes, Eric Dyson. The way in which he speaks has been equated to a pastor. And what is the point of a pastor? Well, it's to lead their sheep, right? Their flock. Lead the flock. And along the way, tell a parable. Tell a story an allegory, a way in which we can espouse our ideas through a narrative tale. Because you could throw all the data, all of the signs that you want at people, but the general public is going to roll their eyes just like they did in their high school algebra class, in their college statistics courses. They're just there, they're punching a clock so that they can get on to the things that they want to do, and you throw a ton of data at them and they are going to shut you off. And that does not mean that the general public is stupid. It is that the general public is busy. They got other things to do. And your data, while it's very nice and very neatly presented, it does not matter to them. And no amount of your, well, it should matter. None of that matters to them, that they do not care about your statistics. They want to see the results. Or they want to hear a good story. And our stories are terrible. Because it's all doom and gloom. Woe is. If you don't do this, this will happen. And they have that on the left too, but we do it in such a stale, undramatic fashion that people just shut off. And it's funny, you see these lawyers who have become talk show personalities or politicians, and there's always been an element of theater. You go back to Rome. You know, we have courthouses and the trials get, sequestered away from the general public. There's only a few people allowed in. There might be some cameras that are recorded, but the majority of things that happen in a courthouse are never seen. In Roman times, what happened? In Greek times, what happened? The trials occurred out in the open, where anyone could be passing by. Oh, what's happening there? Oh, well, they're trying, Lex for, I stole a horse. They're going to try him. Oh, okay. Well, I might want to watch that. What happened? That kind of thing happened all the time. And these lawyers got up and they told these grand stories. Now, we've learned that a lot of that is part of the problem, where justice becomes corrupted, is because the story then becomes more important than the facts that are actually being proposed. Or, not proposed, but shown. And that's where the distraction comes in. Is that a lot of these stories are just that. Stories. And as the old Texas adage goes, you don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. I'm sure it comes from elsewhere, but I've always heard it phrased as something Texas comes up with. So our story's boring. We're uninteresting. Even those of us, kind of on the liberty-minded side of things, even though we're like, yeah, go free, go do your thing. Be happy. Be free. Go do your thing. And even that's boring to people. And that's confusing to me, because I'm saying, go write your own story. Do the things in your life that make you happy, and then share it with other people. And that's boring. But yet they do it all the time in videos like this. Audio letters, TikToks, posts on internet forums, posts in comment sections. We do it all the time. We interject ourselves all the time, and we're still bored. And if all of my videos sound dour and maybe overwhelmed at times sounding, it's because I'm an active pessimist. You prepare for the bad and hope for the good, and if the bad comes out to happen, well, you were prepared. But I always hope that the positive side of things wins out. I want to be wrong a lot of the time. I want good to be occurring in the world. But I prepare myself. And probably you should too. But we lose because we do not tell a good, compelling story. Because ours is a position of defense. The defender is always at a disadvantage if the attacker is dynamic. If they're always moving, if they're always on the go, if the defender does not have a way to advance themselves, to expand what they're defending, then they'll always lose. So start telling good stories. Root them in something, but tell good stories. Inform people. And let's get out there and try to say things to people that'll compel them to go, hey, that's a really good idea. Never thought of it that way. I liked that story. I think I'll listen again.